Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome one and welcome all. This is our very first alumni panel of the 2023-2004 school year. So appreciate everybody joining in, and I really hope everybody's having a great semester so far. If you haven't connected with me before, I am Justin Skiven. I am the Career Development Manager for our School of Management. So see some familiar faces, and I am definitely happy to, assist with any sort of career development now until after you graduate as well. So I appreciate everybody joining in, and special thanks to the great panelists that I will introduce here in a second. So thanks very much for joining. I just wanted to discuss a couple of housekeeping items first before we move on. So the undergraduate students in attendance today, I will be sure to document your career development requirement points as we move along in this particular session. So again, thanks for joining in. I will also send everybody a follow-up email. So I will link you to our great panelists today. Make sure that this is not the last time you connect with these great panelists. They are here because they are strong student support services employers, and they've graduated from School of Management. So these are fantastic resources, not just for, the concepts that we're going to talk about today, but, for employment purposes as well. They have some great openings available right now too. So I will send that follow-up email and, connect with these great people on LinkedIn as well too, if you're on LinkedIn. The third housekeeping item I wanted to talk about is make sure you attend any sort of career development session that we have like this. We usually have 2 career development and alumni panels per semester, but we also have our big career fair coming up. We also have our Student Organization Awareness Day next week. So make sure you check my scorecard document, the document I send each week. Participate in these great sessions. They're very informative, and they're here to help you with your career development. The last housekeeping item I wanted to mention today is I will include these great panelists in the follow-up email. So if there's going to be a lot of information discussed, but I will be sure to include the names of our great panelists for today. And again, make sure you connect with them, not just, in the upcoming weeks, but in the future. They're here to help out. So let's get into it. So I wanted to introduce the great panelists for today. We have Sean Lemke. He's actually an old classmate of mine from high school. He is a 2015 graduate of School of Management, and he is the head of partnerships for a very innovative company called Night Shift Skateboards. So Sean, thank you very much for attending. Our second panelist today is going to be Mario Zepeda, and he is a 2000 School of Management graduate. And he is the Director of Marketing and Fund Development for Vocational Independence. Fantastic organization. They also have some great opportunities available as well. So thank you, Mario, for joining in. And last but not least, we have another fantastic panelist, Nakshidil Sadien. She is the 2015 graduate of School of Management, and she's an associate at Silicon Valley Bank. So thank you, all 3 of you, for joining in today. And I'll talk a little bit about how the session is run if you're not familiar with it. So I'll be the facilitator, and I'm going to ask some very prominent questions to our great panelists for today. As we've had more alumni panels, we've been able to tabulate some questions that students want answered, and I've been able to compile that for today's session. And our great panelists will be able to answer and provide expert insight to those questions. So I'm going to start this off with Sean. So Sean, can you explain your career path leading to your current industry?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Hey, everyone. Great to see you all today. Appreciate you joining the session. So as Justin mentioned, I am a 2015 graduate of the School of Management. I actually joined the School of Management as a career-changing catalyst. Prior to UM-Flint, I was in the Marine Corps, was enlisted there for a few years. And so I pivoted away from defense work in the military and as a private contractor and toward business. I just saw a lot of opportunity, really limitless opportunity in business. and that was very attractive to me. So I had lived in the mid-Michigan area, enrolled in community college first, and actually transferred into UM-Flint. I got my BBA in international business. Shortly thereafter, I had applied for an MBA program because I had that work experience prior to my undergrad degree, which made me eligible for MBA applications. So I did that, got my MBA, and actually secured a role post-MBA at Ford Motor Company for a few years, and am now working as the head of partnerships for a spin-out of Ford Motor Company called Visor. I'll drop the website link in the chat. That's my day job. That's my primary career path, working for Visor, which is a tech company. I also, as Justin mentioned, own my own company called Night Shift Skateboards. I can drop the link in the chat for that too. And so I'm finding my way into entrepreneurship finally, which has been pretty cool over the last few months. So that's me. Happy to connect at the end of the session, answer any questions, or after the session, if anything comes up.
Fantastic. And just kind of a subset question for you, Sean. The MBA, congrats on that. For some of the students in this session today that might be considering the MBA, can you talk about the benefit that's had for you?
Yeah, I mean, the MBA was like just supercharged my eligibility for securing a job in an industry that I found interesting at the time. I think it would have been pretty difficult for me to do that just because of my lack of work experience in a business or corporate setting prior to my BBA. So the program was fantastic. Just so many benefits. I mean, I could talk forever about the benefits of that, and I'm happy to do it again after we get through the questions.
Fantastic. And Mario, I will ask you the same question. You're very decorated in your career so far. Can you explain your career path, to your current employment?
Mario, you're muted, just so you know.
Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, thank you, Justin. I really appreciate the opportunity, and welcome to all the School of Management students. Definitely take advantage of this opportunity. Utilize every resource you can. Feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn and whatever other way you feel appropriate, but I'm always here to help. Along with Sean's timeline, I was an Army veteran, first Gulf War. Been around for a while. So when I transitioned out of the military, I went straight to UM-Flint on the GI Bill. Graduated at my 4th year, and then proceeded to go into the pharmaceutical industry. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep for a really long time. Left that industry, opened up my own business, transitioned from that into vice president of sales for a large lighting manufacturer, which in turn, ironically enough, the organization that I work for now was one of my clients. And they were just really impressed with my professionalism and my demeanor and the way I handled myself and conducted business, that they thought that I would be a great resource and a great asset for them in this industry. So I've gone from profit to nonprofit. So I'm now in the nonprofit sector. So that's what I do. But I've been in sales for 30 years. So that's what I know.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Mario. Quick question for you too. You mentioned the transition from military life back to civilian life. We get a lot of students that may not yet have any in-field experience. So you kind of mentioned the importance of transferable skills that maybe some underclassmen students can use for in-field internships.
So skills from a military standpoint, or just skills in general?
Transferable skills, things that you've been able to learn, the team building, leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd like to stress that every military service member, and we're instilled from the very beginning how to be leaders, right, in all facets of the operations that we take part in. So I took that leadership ability. I was a president of the business club at UM-Flint, was involved in a lot of different organizations, utilized my leadership in that standpoint. Discipline, time management is critical in business. You have absolutely got to be good at time management. And that was a skill set that I learned with my days in the military. So, learn as much as you can, but also analyze what your skill sets are. You'd be surprised at what you actually know and can utilize in the real world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will ask the same question to our third great panelist here. So Nakshidil, I will ask you this. Explain your career path, leading to your particular line of work.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Thanks, Justin, for the invite. I had an actually very untraditional career path. I actually didn't graduate from the School of Management, College of Arts and Sciences. I did my undergrad in political science and sociology. I knew from the very get-go that once I graduated, I wanted to work with refugees. But I realized that I needed to have a good grasp of finance, and I just didn't have that. I ended up going to Georgetown, did a Master's of Science in Foreign Service, and during my time there, I interned for a women's empowerment fund as well as a hedge fund. And I considered working for a firm in private equity, but I ended up getting recruited in private debt at West River Group in Seattle. So been a little all over the place. Eventually we got acquired, our debt platform got acquired by Silicon Valley Bank Capital, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So very untraditional. I think breaking into the industry was really hard. So I made sure to kind of ensure that I honed in on business skills wherever there's opportunities to do so. I grasped that, and that's how I ended up where I'm at.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining as well. I think the common thread with all three panelists is, a lot of students, they kind of think if they're an accounting major, for example, their only lines of employment would be in accounting. But as evidenced by the three of you, there's so many different options with the business degree. And I think that's fantastic as well. So I will ask the next question to Sean. So Sean, could you talk about the best advice you would give students to prepare for their future career?
Yeah, I read this question in the pre-read material. No pressure. This is a big question. What's my biggest piece of advice? I would suggest that each and every one of you do two things. The first is not underestimate yourself, ever. In the event that you apply to jobs and don't get offered an interview or position, which will happen to all of us, even to schools, and maybe that doesn't work out, which happens to all of us, don't take that as a shot at your ability to create value in this world. There is something that you are undoubtedly so competent at and good at that will be highly valued if and when you find the right fit for whatever organization you work yourself into. It's not going to be given, but if you do not underestimate yourself and just keep the mentality that there is something out there for me, there is someone that needs my skill set and me as a person in my individual experience, you will find it, and it will be very rewarding. So that's the first part. Don't underestimate yourself. The second part is try to stay true to who you are. Coming out of business school, I felt a lot of pressure to be someone that I didn't really identify with at my core, but I felt like was a requirement in order to be successful in a business environment. So this would be me wearing a suit to work, or trying to read, publications or magazines, or watch like Bloomberg and walk in and have water cooler talk. And like that got me some relationships, and it did good things to me to a point, but it felt forced. And that, although I found it interesting, wasn't how I really wanted to spend my time. And so the more I've stayed in a professional environment and sort of found that better fit and pursued things that aligned with my interests, the more I've found it's easier to go to work. It's easier for me to contribute value, to find joy in what I do. And to the extent that you can try to solve for that early, it's tough to get there, right? I think that's a luxury, or you're very lucky to find that early in your career. But if you do, hold on to it and try to put yourself in the best position to stay aligned with what's important to you and what you find, easy or exciting or enjoyable. That's not going to be the same story for everyone. And I believe that's where individuals can find the most opportunity to create value.
Fantastic. Great response, Sean. I will ask Mario this next question. So what is the best advice you would give an underclassmen student, freshmen and sophomores on the call today, that has no idea what they want to pursue as a major?
Yeah, so I have firsthand experience with this because I have a 31-year-old daughter who was in this situation. So I'm going to put my dad hat on for a second. So she had this very issue, and one of the things that I told her, and I always strongly believe in this, right? There's things that we love to do, right? Everybody says do what you love. I'm actually going to rephrase that and identify what you're actually good at. Right? I love to do a lot of things, right? I love sports, but I was never good enough that I was going to play in the NFL. So be realistic. It's imperative that you identify that what I'm good at. And I told my daughter this very thing. She wanted to go into social work. And, and I told her, I said, look, that's very admirable of you. It's a great field, but everybody knows historically that there's just really not a large financial gain to be had in social work. So I told her, with my business degree, I've done very well for myself financially, but I had a lot of different avenues that I could take. So fortunately, she took my advice. She graduated from the Broad Business School at State with a supply chain degree, and she's now done very well for herself. But she was good at that, right? She was good at business. So I would just encourage everybody to identify what they're good at and pursue that field. That'll make a world of difference in your career.
Absolutely, great answer. And those of you who have not taken the Strengths Finder and or Focus 2 assessments, these are some really fantastic tools that we offer to help you explore your strengths and skills. So building upon what Mario mentioned, reach out to me, if you'd like to take those particular assessments to figure out more. So great answer, Mario. I will ask this next question here for Nakshidil. Can you explain the importance of staying connected with faculty and advisors as a student? And the reason I ask this is a lot of different students, when they graduate, they kind of go off on their own. They may not utilize career services or faculty for networking. So can you talk about the importance of staying connected, with faculty and advisors?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly strongly believe that your faculty and advisors are your biggest champions. And they've seen you struggle, succeed during school, and they really want what's best for you. And you never know when you might need a recommendation letter or when they might have an opportunity for you. So staying in touch every so often, giving them an update on where you're at with your career, your life, I think is always something good to do. And I've done it numerous times. I've gone back, asked for recommendation letters, let my faculty members know what I'm doing right now. They've advised me on positions that are available in companies that they're connected with. So it's always good to have. So always make sure to keep that connection alive.
Great response. And those of you who are not part of our LinkedIn page, we have a fantastic School of Management LinkedIn page. Back when the panelists and I were students, I think pretty much the only way we could stay connected at that time was through phone or Facebook. That page is fantastic because it allows you to connect with 503 other students, alumni, different employers that are part of that group, for references, letters of recommendation. So just building upon what she mentioned there, join our LinkedIn page. That'll be in my follow-up email as well too. So great answer there. I will ask this next one to Sean. So tracing back to when you were a student, undergrad or graduate, If you had to encapsulate the most beneficial resources you used, what would those be?
I would double down on what was just said and say the faculty, and more broadly, just the people that you connect with. Listen, the material that you're going to learn in an undergrad program and even an MBA, for the most part, is publicly available. How it's delivered, the professors that are in the room can make a big difference in sort of the spin and your ability to absorb the concepts. But the network that you're going to build along the way is just incredibly valuable. And I wish I had known that sooner. I was fortunate enough to, leverage connections that I did make, and that those made all the difference. But the people that you meet along the way, where they go in their careers, the network that is at your disposal in this very short window of time in your professional career could help you, find new opportunities, bring value into the organization that you do work for or start on your own, and just sort of keep a pulse on different trends and industries that could make you a thought leader and stay on the cutting edge of where business is headed, rather than, hoping to be good enough at reacting on your own.
Great response. Thank you, Sean. So I will ask this one to Mario. Informational interviewing / job shadowing, absolutely imperative. Like, we get a lot of students that may look at the job description. However, job descriptions aren't going to be giving them the full story. Learning from some of the in-field experts like yourselves is really important. So can you explain the importance of job shadowing and informational interviewing, especially for our undergraduate students?
Yeah, so again, I have actually how I got my first career this is exactly how I did it. So when I became a pharmaceutical representative, I had asked the district manager if I could job shadow a rep to actually learn what a day in the life looks like for a representative. And for me, it was very, very good exposure to go around and watch these professionals, educate physicians on the different types of medicines and all the other stuff that comes with that. So I highly recommend for every single student that has picked a career path to reach out to somebody and begin to ask questions on what it is like to actually do that job. Because that's important, because if you don't understand what you're getting into, you may go down a path that you're not prepared for, and that could just be disastrous for you in the end. So I highly encourage job shadowing, informational interviews. I'd reach out to presidents of companies, even CEOs, albeit I didn't get a lot of responses from them, but I was very hungry for information and was not afraid to reach out to the people that could give me the information that I needed. So highly recommend job shadowing. It's a must if you can do it.
Absolutely. Great response, Mario. And if any of you need retention materials on what job shadowing is, what an informational interview is, there's a small distinction, but the Canvas page, there's a module in there to give you all the information you need. And these three are fantastic. They'll be available, more than happy to do one-on-ones with you with those topics. But, I'm also happy to connect you to different representatives if you like as well to help with that. So great response, Mario, as well. I will go ahead and ask this one to Nakshidil. What is the best advice you give a student to compete strongly for internships? And the reason I ask this, the average job posting has 118 applicants, and we get so many students that want the remote positions. Those average over 200. So can you explain, the best advice you'd give to a student to compete for an internship?
Yeah, I think like covering your bases first, making sure your resume is updated, prepped to submit. In the case of students at UM-Flint, use the Writing Center, the campus, advising your professors for any advice on how to improve your resume. So make sure that's ready first. I think the next step is do your research, understand why you want that internship, and how you would add value to the workplace. Once you've done that, you want to practice how to articulate that to recruiters, whether it's in your cover letter or when you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn, through email connections and whatnot. And I'd say always write a thank you note. It's a small gesture, but it might go a really long way. I think not a lot of people do it, and they should do it more often. But yeah, probably those three things.
Yeah, you're touching on some very great points. And, I'm around to help all the students on the call today with all of those topics, whether it's getting that resume in good shape, assisting networking and job searching, as well as the follow-up after the interview. The Canvas page will give you some modules as well too. So thank you. Great answer there. Sean, speaking of the internships, we get a lot of students that may be hesitant to maybe quit their part-time permanent position they have now to be able to move to an in-field internship that may be temporary. And I'm big on internships, especially if they get that in-field experience. What's the best advice, or can you explain the importance, when it comes to in-field internships for students?
Yeah, I can provide my perspective. I don't know if it's, the best advice applicable for all situations. Listen, people work during college for different reasons. Maybe they want to keep building their experience. Maybe they just need the income. Maybe, there are a whole host of reasons why. And so I think it's hard to sort of standardize what the best approach is. Work within your boundaries, or if you need cash and that forces you to only look at paid internships, my thought would be to do that, because you're getting a lot more out of the internship than just experience and just a paycheck. You're learning what you like and don't like. This is an opportunity to, again, a rare opportunity to experiment, test out maybe a different industry or a company that you're not sure about, or maybe some sort of fringe role within a skill set or business discipline that you think you're interested in. If you spend 3 months and learn wow, that was not for me, for a variety of reasons, you may have just saved yourself from committing to the wrong employer or industry when it really counts post-graduation. Now, if your situation dictates that you just can't take an internship and you must maintain whatever job you have now or stay in the same industry or whatever the case may be, still use the opportunities to practice applying. Even if you don't accept an internship, you can still get some reps in with applying and interviewing, learn how to interview the company, not just be interviewed. So that way, when you do graduate, if you decide to pursue, a different employer, you've got those reps in recently, and you can express more clearly what you're interested in, what you're looking for in an employer, and to Nakshidil's point, that will help the employer understand that you sort of know what you're looking for, you know yourself, you've done your research, and you're acting with intent when you do take those full-time job interview positions.
Great response, Sean. Your answer was so good that you answered my next question as well. So,
Justin, could I piggyback on that?
Go ahead.
Could I piggyback on what Sean said there? So I did 3 internships when I was at U-Flint. 2 of them were finance related, and 1 was related to marketing research. And to what he said, I hated all 3 of them. And my dream job growing up was to be a stockbroker. Back in the day, that's what we called them. Now they're called financial advisors. But I actually did an internship with a major broker in town, and I absolutely hated it, and it destroyed my dream of doing that. But again, thank God I did it, because to his point, it would have been a disaster for me if I had continued down that road. And then I did another one in a bank as a credit analyst. Absolutely hated that. Then I did one again for a large automotive manufacturer in marketing research and hated that. So please do as many internships as you can. Get an actual feel for the job. It's really important.
Great response, great response. And yeah, work with me, everybody. I have a lot of great employer contacts like these three, to kind of help you with that internship search. So I'm going to call a little bit of an audible with this question and a little bit on the topic. Student organizations are so undervalued, but they're so beneficial. A lot of students, I try to dispel a few of the rumors. It's not a massive time commitment. Student organizations are great to get that resume padded, network, and gain some new skills within your field. So I'll ask any of the three panelists today, talk about the benefit of student organizations for some of the ones that might be on the fence today.
I can.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say go for it. Honestly, like I got so much value out of joining organizations on campus, and the amount of exposure you get through organizations is massive. Obviously, like take the time to think about where you want to put your time and effort in. But I mean, in my case, I was actively involved in student government. I ran for president. We won that year. And the amount of opportunities that I had as a result of that, honestly, like I just absolutely grateful for that experience. And I think U of M-Flint is really special in that it's small, and you have that opportunity to show your skills, work on projects that you can market eventually to potential employers. So don't be afraid of putting yourself out there, joining organizations. And if you join an organization, you feel that you cannot handle your workload and your outside activities, take a step back. There's no harm in that. But like you absolutely should try it, put yourself out there.
Totally.
Fair response. Yeah, I always consider too for the underclassmen that may not have, say, 55 credits that we usually suggest for an internship. These student organizations are kind of a nice middleman there, just to kind of give them a taste of getting some good experience while they get ready for an internship too. So you wanted to add something, Mario?
No, I was just this is kind of I call the fraternity I was in a non-traditional student body organization, right? Because we had a lot of fun. But I do want to say those networks of gentlemen that I met in my fraternity there, to this day, are business assets for me. A lot of them are in very prominent roles with major corporations, and we network and we do all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's not a traditional, what I would call, student organization, right? Like a governmental body and things of that nature. But if you have the opportunity, like she said, definitely join organizations, put yourself out there. It's important.
Absolutely.
One quick comment too.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Student body organizations are also an opportunity for you to prove it. If you're interested in something and you pursue those types of industries through an internship or after graduation, and you happen to be involved in a student organization that is somewhat aligned with that industry, you've proven interest. If there isn't a student body organization that aligns with your industry of choice for employment, start something. Like start a club. You can do that. You're going to learn a lot about the industry and how to start something from scratch, which is, not easy all the time. And it may be a time commitment, but like, so what? Like, just do it. And in a sea of classmates that, are high caliber, graduating from the same institution, probably have a lot of the same classes, maybe similar early career resumes, this is a way for you to stand out and express your personality and interest. You want to differentiate yourself, right? It doesn't mean you're competing against your classmates. It's just mean that you're differentiating yourself to be more attractive to the industry that you're really targeting. So like, as an
Great
example, I had no experience in automotive before my MBA program, and there wasn't an automotive related club at the school that I went to. So I started one, and that became a very interesting talking point in my internship and full-time job applications. And, you know, it certainly wasn't the thing that got me the job, but it was definitely a contributing factor. And I didn't know it. I wasn't planning on that at the time, but that's just how it worked out. And so I think to the extent that you can demonstrate interest rather than just express it in an interview, is going to mean a lot. It's going to go a long way.
Absolutely. And to put everything to the test with the student organizations, on September 20th next week, we are having our first Student Organization Awareness Day of the academic year. So at 1:45, if everybody on the call today is able to make it either through Zoom or in person, check out my invitation I sent over. There's also my scorecard document where we're going to have roughly about 8 different speakers of our student organizations that will be talking about their organizations, and we'll have like a commitment form afterwards where you can actually join. So great way to put everything into practice if you're available. This is September 20th at 1:45. So I hope you all can make it. I will go ahead and ask Mario this next question. So kind of moving into a little bit different spectrum of the panel today. Continuous professional development is huge, especially in the business field. You have to be able to stay flexible and learn new things. Can you talk about the training you experienced, within your new role?
Yeah, so I've just been in this role for 3 months now. So my training is a little bit different because the succession plan here is for me to take over the organization probably in about 3 or 4 years. So my training is more involved with, how to run nonprofits, how to be a leader in the community, how to fundraise, how to market, because things are totally different in the nonprofit space as is the for-profit. Just things are just done differently, right? Everything that I learned over 30 years being in for-profit, I had to basically throw out the window, except things like building relationships and all of that nature. But so I can't really speak to the training per se, because I haven't really been here long enough to do that. But I will say this, embrace training wherever you go. Learn as much as you can, because wherever you go might not be your last stop. And those skills will transition to the next organization that you go to.
Absolutely. And yeah, we have, different workshops here too, like business etiquette as well.
Mhm.
If y'all wanted to join that. LinkedIn is great. It also has like a courses module for all of you to take live and recorded different webinars on things like technology, Microsoft Office and things too. So thanks a ton there, Mario, as well. I will open this up for anyone, any of the 3 panelists. So chatted a little bit about this earlier in the session. I get a lot of students that they may kind of lock themselves into, a major. They may kind of think, well, maybe I'm a supply chain major. Am I only open to logistics positions? Or, I get a finance major that may kind of think they're only available to take or apply for financial advisor positions. Can you talk about the versatility of the business field and just the wide ranges of employment that students have regardless of their major?
Yeah, so I'll start with that. Having a business degree, business administration degree like I have, extremely flexible. I had a marketing concentration, but there are so many different avenues that I could go down, especially running my own business. Some of the skills that I learned at UM-Flint absolutely transitioned to that. Finance, obviously a lot of financial things that were involved in that. My marketing background that I learned there helped me tremendously in the sales jobs that I've had. So I just think a business degree offers you so much flexibility in the different directions you can go. That's really all I can say about that. But yes, definitely a lot of flexibility.
Fantastic. Sean, Nakshidil, anything you wanted to add in terms of just versatility of having a business degree?
Yeah, sure. So the major is the major, but, and that might only afford certain opportunities immediately out of college, maybe, right? I don't think you can reasonably expect to graduate with a concentration in supply chain management and move into like a completely different area in business. So you may have to sort of get your foot in the door within the major that you've chosen. Most likely, that's just my guess. The thing about business though is like none of it happens in isolation. So even if you're really competent at supply chain management, but you're interested in like something else, marketing, strategy, people that make strategic decisions are often T-shaped. Like they have a broad skill set, but they have a really deep skill set in one aspect of business, or any other discipline, psychology, medicine, whatever. Consultants are often like T-shaped individuals. So to the extent that you have a specialty, but are able to leverage that in different types of roles is incredibly valuable for organizations. One can't reasonably expect a company to make informed strategic decisions without considering the sort of risks and dependencies and opportunities associated with the nuanced details of impacts to its supply chain. And it often takes that expert in the room, that experienced professional in the room to help guide those much bigger cross-functional decisions. So you can specialize now, find your way into a different role, provide a perspective on a cross-functional discipline that is going to help, wherever you find yourself in an organization, make more considerate decisions, and even evolve into a generalist role where you're like a general manager who has to have a skill set and be able to speak the language across like marketing, strategy, finance, operations, whatever the case may be. So whatever you major in, you could stay there or use it as a stepping stone, but the perspective is valuable.
Absolutely. Well, Nakshidil, I will ask you this particular question here. A lot of the upperclassmen that are in the session today, they're pretty close to graduation and they're going to be on the hunt for full-time employment. So can you talk about, some key employers that, you've either been in contact with in your time with UM-Flint or now that have done a good job of hiring some of our own?
I think I'm happy to chat with anyone at a separate time to kind of discuss, especially if you're interested in private debt. I could definitely help out in that sense. But in terms of key employer contacts, I'm not sure, to be honest.
No problem. Anybody else can answer that as well.
Well, I mean, obviously being in our community, right, or in Michigan in general, a huge automotive presence, right? And I know historically when I was at U of M-Flint, a lot of my classmates were fortunate enough to find jobs with the big three. Maybe Sean can speak a little bit more to that because he's, associated with that industry. But, I mean, a lot of employers, and I worked in the Career Development Center, that's what it was called back in the late 90s when I was in school. When we had job fairs, we had major employers come, but I think it's only gotten better over time as a university's presence has grown and its reputation has grown across the board. So I would just say that, feel confident with your degree and the skill sets that you've learned at U of M-Flint that you're going to be able to prosper once you're done with school. You will find that employer that values what you've learned.
Absolutely. Sean, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, use the career services office in your school. Career services offices in academic institutions often have existing relationships with larger companies. Smaller companies, maybe not so much. But with larger companies, these companies have an interest in recruiting from these schools, and the schools have an interest in placing their students into, successful paid positions, right? It's a win-win. So leverage that shared interest of theirs, be the thing that they exchange value based on, and it'll work to your benefit in the end. So use what's there. If it's not there, maybe ask the career service office to establish a relationship or identify a recruiter or a human resources business partner that the institution can establish a relationship with. I guarantee, I know for a fact, the big three, automotive, and many other employers, Dow DuPont, like the big accounting firms, they will have a university representative that you can establish a connection with.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to link all of you to different employer contacts as well too. So the next question I have 3 more, and then we can go ahead and get the questions from the students answered. So this will be to either one of you. We get a lot of students that are working part-time, taking classes full-time. Talk about the importance of work-life balance, for students.
Yeah, I kind of follow that model myself. And it was a challenge, right? So it's always a challenge to balance work and going to school at the same time, especially when you're trying to maintain a certain grade level. The only way that I could do it myself, obviously, is I had support from the military, from my time in. But I worked as little as I possibly could to just make ends meet, because school was such a focus for me and doing well. And I was not willing to sacrifice my grades for more money. But again, everybody's situation is different. So all that I can tell you is, so long as it doesn't impact your school and your learnings, then you're fine. But if you're working too much and you start to see that suffer, definitely try and taper it back if you can. It's called work-life balance for a reason, right? It's extremely challenging, but it can be done.
Absolutely. Any comments from the other 2 panelists on work-life balance?
I think everybody's different. My work-life balance was not very balanced at all. I just tried to plow through school as efficiently as possible. So this was like overload credit hours, summer courses, spring, everything. I was just trying to get through it. And there were pros and cons to that, certainly, but for my goal, that's sort of what work-life balance required in order for me to achieve it. So listen to yourself, listen to your body, just like you would in if you're exercising or whatever. If you're sore, don't work out. If you're burnt out, take one less class or something. Listen to yourself, keep your goal in mind, and just work toward that. You're gonna make it. Even if it is tough for a couple years, I think it was worth it for me.
Absolutely. Nakshidil, anything you wanted to add to that particular question?
Yeah, I'd say if you're struggling as well with work-life balance, especially with, everyone's mentioned, everyone's different, circumstances are different. I think there's also no harm in reaching out to your advisor and seeking help there to understand where you could pull back and how you could really dance the dance with that work-life balance situation. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help if you need it. The university's there for you, so seek that out if needed.
Yeah, great. And even if myself or your academic advisor may not be a point contact for an inquiry you have, we can connect you to that right person. So great answers there. I will end my portion with this question here, and probably the easiest one that you'll be asked today. If you can think of any additional advice that we haven't talked about today, what's some additional advice you can think of to give our great students on the call today?
Find a mentor, whatever that looks like for you. My mentor in school was my marketing professor. He taught me a lot about what I've known, but find a mentor. That's the best advice I can give anybody while you're in school.
Absolutely. Anything else for our other two panelists?
Yeah, I'd say don't be afraid to get uncomfortable and don't ever box yourself. You're in school to discover yourself, understand where you want to go, how you want to get there. So seek all the help that you need and put yourself out there. And obviously, at any time, reach out to Mario, Sean, and myself, and we're happy to help out as much as needed.
Absolutely. Sean, anything else you wanted to add?
Try to discover and be intentional and live up to your brand. What type of teammate are you? Individual contributor, employee, resource? Like, are you creative? Everybody's creative, but like, is that your sort of niche? Are you reliable? Like, get it done at all costs, or more of a people person? And like, those aren't hard trade-offs. I'm just saying, think about who you are, where your values lie naturally, and try to interpret that into a way that a recruiter or a company can make sense of and leverage within their own organization, and just build your brand. What you're known for is going to help you discover who you are and what you're good at, and guide your decision making. It'll also act as a magnet to attract the type of interest that is going to leverage the brand that you've built. So without that, it's sort of like feeling around in the dark until you find something that seems like a good fit. So to the extent that you can like reflect and be intentional and write it down, and challenge if those words accurately describe the brand that you want to emanate, then try to figure that out early.
Fantastic. So the final portion of today is the most important one, and this is going to be questions from our great students on the call today. So soaking in all the great information that was given today, I will give the floor to our great students. So you can either convey a question verbally or you can put it in the chat, and our great panelists will be happy to answer. So I encourage any and all questions.
Don't
Give
be
you
shy.
a few. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. There was a question.
Nope, I said don't be shy.
Oh.
Also, too, if you think of a question afterwards or you don't want to ask it in front of the group, feel free to email the panelists as well. They're happy to answer that way as well.
Absolutely. And take your time. I know some of the analytical. There's a great question on the chat today. So we have a good question. How long do you think it took for you to get your footing in your career financially?
For me, with my first corporate job, I'd say probably 4 years. 4 years to really master my craft. And then the rewards come with time through promotions. And, when you're in sales, you're incentivized. So all those things happen. But I would probably say by my 5th year out of school is when I started to come into my own financially and within my career.
Perfect. Perfect. Take your time. Any more questions? I know some of the people that are more analytical might take a few seconds. So I recommend any questions you can think of for our great panelists today. Got one more question. So do any of you have any knowledge of people who went into actuary science or research administration, and how a person with a business degree can enter those fields?
I have an idea based on a company that I interviewed with. So there's a lot of opportunities out there to commercialize things that are being researched. General Electric has a lot of opportunities there, as an example, right? So they have a whole, I'll call it division. I'm not actually sure how their corporate structure looks now, but I'll call it, they have a research division in New York, and it's just, they're working on amazing projects, like incredible bleeding edge technology stuff. They have, you know, likely some of the smartest people in the world on their team, just cranking out new ways to utilize technology for problems that exist today and problems that they anticipate will exist in the future. So they're working on the solution, commercializing the solution, making it publicly available, distributing it, selling it, getting a return on the investment so that they can continue researching on the next thing. Like, there is absolutely a need for someone with business chops to step in and recognize the technology, the thing that's being developed, and tapping into the applications, forming commercial agreements to, you know, sell the thing, or find grant money, or, you know, take care of the administration and logistics associated with just making it available to the general public. Those are absolutely business skills that are needed to take advantage of the research that's being conducted all over the place. Otherwise, the research is just, it exists and might not go anywhere as quickly.
Absolutely. And Angela, I'll also send you something I use in my career exploration meetings called What I Can Do with a Major. Great website to kind of let you know your options as well too. So perfect. In the final minutes, any additional questions? And we have one more. So it took a while, but we got a few coming in. It's just fantastic. So what is your favorite part / benefit of working in a business related field?
I can take this one. I actually worked at the IFC prior to getting my job at West River Group and then Silicon Valley Bank. And the amount of red tape that I had to go through at the IFC was out of this world. Pretty, like, the pace is different, right? And in my, at least my corporate job right now, it's very like fast paced. Like, if approvals need to get done, they're done. So I'd say like the pace is a little different.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also add that, you know, at least for my career, there's never been a dull moment in business. There's always a challenge that needs to be overcome, right? There's always improvements that need to be made to processes, relationships that need to be made to drive business. It's just not dull. For me, it's never been the same thing from one day to the next. And that's what I find very challenging about being in business.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if anybody has any additional questions, I will be sure to follow up through email. So I want to sincerely thank not just the great students that were on the call today, but our 3 fantastic panelists today. A lot of great information. This recording will be available, by the way, you know, if you wanted to trace back to some of the great answers from today's session. And I will include the great panelists in the follow-up email. So expect a follow-up from me, and make sure you connect with these 3 great panelists. They're available, you know, not just for informational interviewing, but for employment opportunities in the future as well. So I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you very much. And this was the very first alumni panel of our academic year. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Best of luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.